The rain came down in thin, slanted sheets, tapping against the windshield like impatient fingers. Emberlyn Cade Whitaker sat in her aging Honda Civic, engine idling, hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. She hadn't moved in 5 minutes. The eviction notice lay folded in the passenger seat, creased along the same lines she had opened and closed at least 20 times that morning. Final notice, printed in bold across the top, as if shouting at her. Behind her, in the back seat, Lila May hummed softly to herself, tracing shapes in the fogged-up window. "Mama," Lila said, "are we going home now?" Emberlyn swallowed. Home. That word didn't feel like it belonged to them anymore. "Soon, baby," she said gently, forcing warmth into her voice. "Mama's just thinking." Thinking didn't pay rent. Thinking didn't fix the transmission. Thinking didn't make the past stop knocking. On the present like a debt collector. 3 jobs. That's what she was juggling now. Waitressing at a diner before sunrise, cleaning offices at night, and picking up freelance sewing whenever she could. Still, it wasn't enough. Not since the medical bills stacked up after Lila's asthma took a dangerous turn last winter. And not since he left. Emberlyn exhaled slowly, resting her forehead against the steering wheel. "I'm trying," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to herself or to God. But if she was honest, she hadn't talked to God in a long time, not since her prayers started feeling like echoes in an empty room. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and fried onions, a scent Emberlyn had long stopped noticing. "Table 6 needs a refill," her manager barked from behind the counter. "I got it," she said, already moving. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, but she moved with practiced efficiency, balancing 3 mugs in one hand, a pot of coffee in the other. "Here you go, sir," she said with a polite smile. The man barely looked at her. It was always like that. Invisible, except when something went wrong. By noon, her shift ended. By 1 p.m., she needed to pick up Lila from school. By 3, she had a meeting with the landlord she was dreading. She wiped down the last table, then checked her phone. Missed call. Unknown number. Voicemail 1. Her stomach tightened. She stepped into the back hallway and pressed play. "Ms. Whitaker, this is St. Jude's pediatric office. We need to discuss Lila's latest test results. Please call us back as soon as possible." The world seemed to tilt. "No, no, no," she whispered. Her hands started shaking. Lila had been tired lately, more than usual. Emberlyn had told herself it was just school, or stress, or anything but something serious. She slid down against the wall, clutching the phone like it might anchor her. "God," she said, voice cracking for the first time in years. "I can't lose her." Silence answered, and for a moment, anger flared, sharp, hot, and dangerous. "Where are you?" she demanded under her breath. "I've done everything right. I've worked. I've sacrificed. Her voice broke. "I can't do this alone." That was the first honest prayer she had prayed in a long time. Hospitals had a way of slowing time without mercy. Every second stretched thin, like it might snap under the weight of waiting. Emberlyn Cade Whitaker sat in a stiff vinyl chair, her hands wrapped tightly around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee she hadn't touched. Across the room, a television murmured low, captions flickering across the screen no one was really watching. Lila May leaned against her side, small fingers curled into the fabric of Emberlyn's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, her voice softer than usual. "Are we staying long?" Emberlyn brushed a loose curl from her daughter's forehead and forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just a little while, baby. The doctors just want to check on you." Lila nodded, trusting, always trusting. That was the part that made Emberlyn's chest ache the most. She lifted her gaze, scanning the waiting room, People scattered in quiet worry, some pacing, some praying, some staring into nothing. Pain looked different on everyone, but it was there all the same. That's when she noticed him. He sat 2 chairs down, elbows resting on his knees, hands loosely clasped. His posture was steady, not tense, not restless, just grounded, like he knew how to wait, like waiting didn't frighten him. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't watching the television. His gaze rested somewhere distant, thoughtful, as if he carried his own story, but wasn't letting it spill over. Emberlyn looked away quickly. She wasn't here to notice strangers. She was here because her world felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Minutes passed, or maybe it was longer. Time had become unreliable. Lila shifted beside her, coughing lightly. Emberlyn's hand immediately moved to her back, rubbing gently in slow circles. "It's okay," she murmured, more to herself than to Lila. "Do you believe that?" The voice was calm, low, and close enough that it startled her, but not in a harsh way. Emberlyn turned. The man from 2 chairs down had shifted slightly closer, not intruding, but present. "I'm sorry," he added, his tone steady. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I just heard what you said." There was no pity in his eyes, no assumption, just quiet sincerity. Emberlyn hesitated. Normally, she would have shut the moment down, built a wall, turned away. But something about his presence didn't feel invasive. It felt safe. "I want to believe it," she admitted softly. "I just don't know if I do right now." He nodded, like he understood more than she'd said. "That's honest," he replied. "Honest is a good place to start." She studied him now, really looked. Early 30s, maybe. Worn in a way that didn't come from age, but from experience. There was something in his eyes, something steady, but not untouched by pain. "What are you here for?" she asked before she could stop herself. He leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose. "My brother," he said. "Surgery this morning." "I'm sorry," she said automatically. He gave a small shake of his head. "Don't be. He's strong. And God's been good to us before." That word, God. It landed between them like something fragile. Emberlyn's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "I used to think that," she said quietly. He didn't flinch, didn't correct her, didn't preach. He simply listened, and somehow that made it harder to keep everything inside. "My daughter," she said, her voice lowering. "They think something might be wrong. They called this morning. Tests. More tests." She swallowed. "I don't even know how I'm going to pay for this visit, let alone anything else." Her voice cracked despite her effort to hold it together. "And people say, trust God, like it's easy," she continued, a hint of frustration slipping through. "Like faith pays bills or fixes diagnoses." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was respectful. The man nodded slowly, then rested his forearms on his knees again. "My name's Caleb," he said. "Emberlyn." "That's a strong name." She almost laughed. "It doesn't feel like it." Caleb glanced at Lila, then back to Emberlyn. "My mom used to say something when things didn't make sense," he said. "I didn't like it much when I was younger." Emberlyn raised an eyebrow slightly. "What was that?" He paused, like he was choosing his words carefully. Not to impress, but to be truthful. "She'd quote scripture at the worst times," he said, a faint smile touching his lips. "Drove me crazy back then." Despite herself, Emberlyn let out a quiet breath that almost resembled a laugh. "Sounds familiar." He nodded. "But one stuck," he continued, "especially when I didn't have answers." He looked at her then, not intense, not forceful, just present. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths." He spoke it gently, not like a sermon, but like something he had leaned on himself. Proverbs 3:5-6, he added. Emberlyn's eyes dropped to her hands. "Lean not on your own understanding," she repeated faintly. "That's the problem. I don't understand any of this." Caleb nodded once. "Me neither," he said simply. That caught her off guard. "You don't?" she asked. "No," he said. "But I've learned that not understanding doesn't mean God isn't working." He hesitated, then added, "Sometimes it just means we're in the middle of the story, not the end of it." Emberlyn felt something shift. Small, almost unnoticeable, but real. Not relief, not peace, but a crack. A place where something could enter. Lila stirred beside her. "Mama," she said sleepily, "I'm tired." Emberlyn kissed the top of her head. "I know, baby." Caleb reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out a small, worn Bible. He didn't hand it to her, didn't push it forward. He just held it loosely in his hands. "There's another one," he said, "if you don't mind." She didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He glanced at her. Matthew 11:28. Emberlyn closed her eyes briefly. Heavy laden. That felt accurate. Too accurate. "I don't feel rest," she admitted. Caleb gave a small nod. "Sometimes it doesn't feel like rest right away," he said. "Sometimes it just starts with not carrying it alone." Before she could respond, a nurse's voice called out, "Lila Whitaker?" Everything inside Emberlyn snapped back into urgency. She stood quickly, gathering Lila into her arms. "That's us." She turned, adjusting her grip, and paused. Caleb hadn't moved, but his expression had softened, steady and reassuring in a way she hadn't realized she needed. "I'll pray for her," he said quietly. Emberlyn hesitated. Prayer used to be something she trusted without question. Now it felt uncertain. But looking at him, she didn't feel pressure. She felt sincerity. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And for the first time in a long while, she meant it. As she followed the nurse down the hallway, the weight on her chest didn't disappear. The fear didn't vanish. The questions didn't resolve. But something had shifted, not in her circumstances, in her heart. Just enough to wonder. What if God hadn't left? What if she had just stopped listening? Behind her, in the waiting room, Caleb bowed his head slightly, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God." Philippians 4:6. And in a quiet hospital waiting room, faith, fragile but alive, began to take root again. The diagnosis didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, in pauses between sentences, in the way the doctor avoided eye contact just a second too long. In medical terms, that sounded controlled, but carried something heavier underneath. Emberlyn sat stiffly in the small consultation room, Lila curled up beside her, unusually quiet. "We're seeing markers that concern us," Dr. Hensley said, folding his hands together. "Her oxygen levels have been inconsistent, and the inflammation hasn't responded the way we'd hoped." Emberlyn's fingers tightened around Lila's hand. "What does that mean?" she asked. The doctor inhaled carefully. "It means we need to act quickly. More tests, possibly a specialist. There are treatments, but they aren't simple." There it was again. Not simple, not affordable, not something her life had room for. "How much?" she asked, her voice flat now. Dr. Hensley hesitated. "I recommend you speak with billing," he said gently. "They can go over options." Options. Emberlyn almost laughed. Options were for people who had something to choose from. By the time she stepped out into the hallway, The world felt louder than before. Machines beeping, footsteps echoing, voices overlapping. Everything moved forward as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Lila leaned against her shoulder, her small body warm and fragile. "Mama, are we okay?" she asked. That question, it broke something open inside her. Emberlyn forced her voice steady. "We're going to be, baby," she said. "We're going to figure it out." She had no idea how. The billing office smelled like paper and stress. A woman behind the desk slid a printed estimate across the counter, speaking in a practiced, careful tone. "These are projected costs based on initial treatment," she said. "We do have payment plans." Emberlyn stared at the number. It didn't even feel real. It felt like something meant for someone else's life. "I don't have this," she said quietly. The woman nodded sympathetically, but not with surprise. "We can work with you," she said, "but a portion will be due up front before certain procedures can begin." Up front. Emberlyn closed her eyes briefly. Rent overdue. Car barely running. 3 jobs already stretched thin. There was nothing left to stretch. "Okay," she said, though it wasn't an answer. It was surrender disguised as agreement. That night, Lila's breathing worsened. It started with a cough, then another, then the kind that didn't stop. Emberlyn sat on the edge of their bed, holding her upright, counting seconds between breaths like it might somehow control them. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered, her own voice trembling now. Lila clutched her shirt, eyes glassy. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know," Emberlyn said, pressing her forehead against Lila's. "I know." And in that moment, fear overtook everything else. Pride, anger, distance, even doubt. "Jesus," she whispered, the name unfamiliar on her lips after so long. "Please, help her." The room stayed the same, but she kept whispering anyway. By morning, they were back at the hospital. Again. Everything blurred, admissions, oxygen masks, nurses moving quickly but calmly. Emberlyn stood just outside the treatment area, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together physically. "You can sit, ma'am," a nurse said gently. "I'm fine," Emberlyn replied automatically. She wasn't. Her legs were shaking. Her chest felt tight. Her thoughts wouldn't settle long enough to form anything useful. And then, Emberlyn. The voice was familiar, steady. She turned. Caleb. He stood a few steps away, concern written plainly across his face. Not exaggerated, not performative, just real. "What happened?" he asked. She shook her head slightly, like if she started explaining, she wouldn't stop. "She couldn't breathe," she said. "It got worse." Caleb nodded slowly, absorbing it. "Is she with the doctors now?" "Yes." Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It held everything she didn't know how to say. Caleb glanced toward the treatment area, then back at her. "Have you eaten?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" "Today," he clarified gently. She shook her head. "I'm not hungry." He didn't argue, didn't push, just nodded, like he understood that hunger wasn't the problem. After a moment, he spoke again, carefully this time. "Emberlyn, if you need help, financially or with anything, I can—" "No." The word came out sharper than she intended, immediate, defensive. Caleb stopped, not offended, just still. "I appreciate it," she added quickly, her voice tightening. "But I can't." He studied her for a moment, not trying to break through, just recognizing the wall. "I'm not asking for anything in return," he said quietly. "That's what people always say." The words slipped out before she could stop them. They hung in the air between them, heavy with something deeper than the moment. Caleb didn't respond right away. "Someone burned you," he said finally. Not as a question, but a quiet understanding. Emberlyn let out a short, humorless breath. "Yeah," she said. "That's one way to put it." She crossed her arms as if bracing herself against something unseen. "I trusted someone once," she continued. "I believed them. I built my life around what they promised." Her voice dropped, and when everything fell apart, they were gone. Caleb nodded slightly. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "It taught me something." "What's that?" "That depending on people is a risk I can't afford." There it was, the truth she had built her survival on. Caleb looked down briefly, then back at her. "I get that," he said. "More than you think." He paused. "But there's a difference between people and God." Emberlyn's jaw tightened slightly. "I don't know if I believe that right now." "That's okay," he said. No pressure, no correction, just space. After a moment, he spoke again. "Can I share something?" he asked. She hesitated, but didn't say no. Caleb's voice remained low, steady. "God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble." Psalm 46:1. Emberlyn looked away. "Doesn't feel like it," she murmured. "I know," he said. "But feelings aren't always the full picture." He shifted slightly, giving her room to breathe. "There was a time I thought God had disappeared on me," he added, "when everything I cared about was falling apart." She glanced at him again. "What changed?" He met her gaze. "I realized he hadn't moved," he said. "I just stopped looking toward him." The words settled slowly, not forcing their way in, just waiting. From down the hall, a nurse appeared. "Ms. Whitaker?" Emberlyn straightened instantly. "Yes." "She's stable," the nurse said. "We've got her on oxygen. The doctor will speak with you shortly." Emberlyn's knees nearly gave out with relief. "Thank you," she breathed. As the nurse walked away, Emberlyn pressed a hand to her chest, steadying herself. Stable, not healed, not fixed, but still here. Caleb stepped back slightly, giving her space, but his presence remained. "I meant what I said," he told her. "You don't have to carry this alone." She closed her eyes briefly. Everything in her wanted to refuse again, to stay guarded, to stay in control. But control was already slipping through her fingers. And the truth was, she was tired, so tired. Her voice softened just a little. "I don't know how to trust that," she admitted. Caleb nodded. "You don't have to figure it all out today," he said. He hesitated, then added one more scripture. Gentler this time, almost like an offering rather than an answer. "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he shall sustain you." Psalm 55:22. Emberlyn let the words sit in the space between them. Cast your burden. She didn't know how to do that yet, didn't know what it looked like, but for the first time, she wondered if it was possible. And that small crack in her armor began to widen. The call came just after midnight. Emberlyn had dozed off in the narrow hospital chair, her neck bent at an awkward angle, one hand still resting on the edge of Lila's bed. Like even in sleep, she refused to let go. The sudden alarm shattered the silence, a sharp, relentless beeping. Then movement, fast, too fast. Nurses rushed in, voices overlapping, urgent, controlled, practiced. Her oxygen's dropping. "Respiratory, now." "Lila, can you hear me, sweetheart?" Emberlyn jolted awake. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice thick with panic as she stood so quickly the chair scraped harshly against the floor. No one answered her right away. They were already working, already trying to fix something she couldn't even see. Lila's small body trembled under the thin hospital blanket, her breathing uneven, shallow, wrong. "Mama!" she gasped, reaching weakly. "I'm here, baby, I'm here," Emberlyn said, rushing to her side, taking her hand. But a nurse gently stepped between them. "Ma'am, I need you to give us space." No, please. Emberlyn's voice broke instantly. That's my daughter. And we're going to help her, the nurse said firmly, but not unkindly. But we need room to do that. Emberlyn staggered back, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might split her chest open. She watched as they placed an oxygen mask over Lila's face, watched as machines blinked and numbers shifted in ways she didn't understand, watched as her child struggled to breathe, and she couldn't do anything. Nothing. Minutes felt like hours. Time stretched into something unbearable. A doctor entered, quick, focused. We may need to transfer her to ICU, he said to the team. ICU. The word hit like a physical blow. No, Emberlyn whispered. Her legs gave out, and she sank into the chair behind her, her hands covering her mouth, as if she could hold the fear in. Jesus, she breathed. But it wasn't a prayer yet. It was desperation. By the time they stabilized Lila enough to move her, Emberlyn felt hollowed out, drained, like something inside her had cracked open and emptied completely. A different doctor approached her in the hallway, calm, composed, carrying news that didn't feel survivable. She needs immediate intervention, he said. There's a procedure we can do, but it needs to happen soon. Emberlyn nodded mechanically. Okay. He hesitated. There are financial authorizations we'll need before we proceed. There it was, even now, even here. How much? She asked, her voice barely holding together. He told her. The number didn't even register as real. It felt like a cruel mistake. I don't have that, she said. I understand, he replied gently. But without approval, we can't move forward with this specific treatment. Her vision blurred. So what are you saying? She whispered. That my daughter has to wait because I'm poor? That's not what I'm saying, he said carefully. We will continue supportive care, but this procedure significantly increases her chances. Chances. Her daughter's life reduced to a percentage and a price. The hallway emptied slowly as the urgency moved elsewhere. But Emberlyn stayed, standing, frozen, alone. Her phone sat in her hand, the screen glowing dimly. She scrolled through contacts she already knew wouldn't help. No family with money, no friends she could ask, no one left. Her thumb hovered, then dropped. There was no one to call. The weight of that truth pressed down harder than anything else. No options, she whispered. Her voice echoed faintly against the sterile walls. No options. And something inside her finally broke. Not cracked, not strained, broken. She slid down the wall until she hit the floor, pulling her knees in as the sobs came, raw, uncontrolled, tearing through her like a storm she couldn't contain. I can't do this, she cried, her voice shaking. I can't lose her. There was no dignity in it, no composure, no careful words, just pain, real, unfiltered pain. God, where are you? She cried out, louder now, not caring who heard. Where have you been? Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her face. I tried to do everything right. I worked, I fought, I gave everything I had. Her voice cracked into something almost unrecognizable. And it's still not enough, silence answered. Or at least, it felt like silence. Her breathing hitched as she bent forward, forehead nearly touching the cold floor. I don't have anything left, she whispered. I don't have money. I don't have strength. I don't even have faith like I used to. Her voice softened, fragile now, almost childlike. I don't know how to fix this. That was the truth, the most honest thing she had said. I don't know what to do. And then, for the first time in years, she stopped trying to sound strong, stopped trying to sound worthy, stopped trying to say the right words. Jesus, she said, her voice trembling. If you're really there, I need you. Tears fell freely now, soaking into her sleeves. "I don't know how to pray anymore," she admitted. "I don't know what you want from me." Her shoulders shook, but I can't lose her. A long, broken breath. "Please, take everything else if you want to. My pride, my plans, my control. I don't care anymore." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Just don't take my daughter." She closed her eyes tightly, and finally, she surrendered. Not polished, not perfect, just real. "Help me." Time passed. She didn't know how long, but something shifted. Not outside, inside. The storm didn't stop, but it softened. Just enough. A memory surfaced. Not loud, not forceful. Just there. Words she hadn't thought about in years. "The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart, and saves such as have a contrite spirit." Psalm 34 and 18. Her breathing slowed slightly. Broken heart. That was exactly what she was. Another verse followed, rising quietly in her mind like something long buried. "Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me." Psalm 50:15. Emberlyn swallowed hard. "Day of trouble," she whispered. This was that day. No, this was that night. And she had called, not beautifully, but honestly. Footsteps approached. She didn't look up at first. "Emberlyn." Caleb's voice, gentle, steady. She lifted her head slowly, eyes red, face tear-streaked. "I didn't know who else to call," he said quietly, holding up his phone slightly. The hospital contacted emergency contacts, listed from earlier. She nodded faintly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "For this." He shook his head. "You don't apologize for breaking when everything's falling apart." He crouched down a few feet away. Not too close, not overwhelming her space. "What happened?" he asked. She tried to speak, but her voice faltered. They need to do something," she managed. "A procedure. I can't afford it. Caleb, I can't afford to save my own child." The words shattered as they left her. Caleb exhaled slowly, his expression tightening, but not in panic, in resolve. "We'll figure something out," he said. She shook her head immediately. No more we. I can't." She stopped herself, breath catching. "I already told you. I can't depend on people." Caleb held her gaze, not pushing, but not retreating either. "Then don't depend on me," he said quietly. That caught her off guard. "Depend on God," he continued, "and let him decide who he uses to help you." The words settled differently this time. Not like pressure, like possibility. Emberlyn looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. "I told him everything," she said softly. "Not the right way, just everything." Caleb nodded. "That's the right way." She glanced up at him, uncertainty still lingering, but something else there now too. "What if nothing changes?" she asked. He paused, then answered honestly. "Then he'll still be with you in it. Not a promise of instant miracles, not a guarantee of outcomes, just truth, steady and unshaken." He added quietly, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you." Isaiah 41:10. Emberlyn closed her eyes again. Fear was still there, but it wasn't alone anymore. For the first time that night, she wasn't either. And somewhere between her breaking and her surrender, faith, raw, fragile, but real, was born again. Morning didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, through the thin hospital blinds, through the quiet hum of machines, through the soft footsteps of nurses changing shifts. Emberlyn hadn't slept. She sat beside Lila's ICU bed, her fingers gently wrapped around her daughter's small hand, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest beneath the wires and tubing. Stable. That was the word they kept using. Not healed, not out of danger, but still here. And after the night she had just lived through, still here felt like something sacred. Emberlyn leaned forward, resting her forehead lightly against the edge of the bed. "Thank you," she whispered. The words surprised her. They came quietly, not out of obligation, not out of habit, but from somewhere deeper. She didn't understand everything. She didn't have answers. Nothing about their situation was fixed, but gratitude had found a way in anyway. A soft knock came at the door. She turned slightly. Caleb stepped in, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a small paper bag. "You look like you haven't moved," he said gently. "I haven't," she replied. He set the items down on the small table nearby. "I figured you might need this," he added, "or at least something close to it." She gave a faint, tired smile. "Thank you." This time, she didn't resist, didn't argue, didn't build a wall. Caleb noticed, but didn't make a big deal out of it. He simply pulled a chair closer and sat down. "How is she?" he asked. "Stable," Emberlyn said. "They're monitoring her closely." He nodded. "That's something." "Yeah," she said quietly. "It is." For a moment, they just sat there in the quiet. Not awkward, not forced, just present. Later that morning, a nurse entered with a clipboard. "Ms. Whitaker," she said with a warm smile, "I wanted to let you know something." Emberlyn straightened slightly. "Yes?" The nurse glanced down at the papers. "There's been an update to your account." Emberlyn's stomach tightened instantly. "I told billing I don't have—" "It's not that," the nurse interrupted gently. "A portion of the required amount for the procedure has already been covered." Emberlyn blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The nurse nodded as if she understood the confusion. "An anonymous donor made a payment early this morning." The room went still. "Anonymous?" Emberlyn repeated. "Yes," the nurse said. "It doesn't happen often, but it does happen." Emberlyn's mind raced. She turned slowly toward Caleb. He was already shaking his head slightly. "It wasn't me," he said quietly. She searched his face, looking for hesitation, for anything that suggested otherwise. There was none, just honesty. "Then who?" she started. The nurse gave a small shrug. "Sometimes people just feel led to help." Feel led. The words lingered. After the nurse left, Emberlyn sat back slowly, trying to process what had just happened. "This doesn't make sense," she said under her breath. Caleb leaned back slightly in his chair. "Maybe it doesn't have to," he replied. She looked at him. "What do you mean?" He held her gaze, not intense, just steady. "Maybe it's not about understanding how," he said. "Maybe it's about recognizing who." Emberlyn swallowed. Her eyes drifted back to Lila. Machines, tubes, fragile life. And now, help, unasked, unseen, unexplainable. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but something unfamiliar. Wonder. By midday, more pieces began to fall into place. A hospital social worker stopped by, explaining additional assistance programs Emberlyn hadn't known existed. A local church group had reached out, offering meals, transportation, even help with childcare if needed. A woman Emberlyn had never met dropped off a handwritten card at the front desk. "Praying for Lila, God sees you." No name, no explanation, just kindness. Emberlyn sat quietly, the card in her hands, reading those 4 words over and over. "God sees you." Tears filled her eyes again, but they felt different now, softer, lighter, as if something inside her was beginning to thaw. That evening, as the sun dipped low, casting warm gold across the hospital room, Emberlyn turned to Caleb. "I don't understand this," she admitted. He nodded. "I know." She looked down at the card again. "It feels like too much to be coincidence." Caleb's expression softened. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Emberlyn exhaled slowly. All things, she repeated. Even this? Even this, he said. She was quiet for a moment. I thought if God ever showed up again in my life, she said, it would be obvious, big, undeniable. Caleb gave a small smile. Sometimes it is, he said, but a lot of the time. He glanced around the room, the steady monitor, the quiet space, the simple presence of life continuing. It looks like this. Emberlyn followed his gaze. Small things, quiet things, provision in pieces, grace, not loud, but constant. That night, after Caleb left and the hospital settled into its late-hour stillness, Emberlyn sat beside Lila again. The room was dim, peaceful in a way it hadn't been before. She reached for the small Bible Caleb had left on the table earlier that day. I thought you might want this, he had said simply. She hadn't opened one in years. Now, her fingers traced the worn edges as she flipped it open slowly. No plan, no structure, just searching. Her eyes landed on a passage, almost at random. Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23. Emberlyn read it again and again. Not consumed. That's what it felt like she should have been. After everything. After last night. After the fear, the breaking, the surrender. But she wasn't. Lila wasn't. They were still here, still breathing, still held somehow. Her voice was barely a whisper. Great is your faithfulness. The words felt unfamiliar, but right. Not because everything was fixed, but because something deeper was beginning to take root. Trust. Not complete, not unshaken, but growing. She reached for Lila's hand again, squeezing it gently. I think, she said softly, I think God is helping us, baby. Lila stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open just enough to meet her mother's. Yeah, she whispered. Emberlyn smiled. This time, it reached her eyes. Yeah, she said. I really think he is. Lila's small fingers squeezed back weakly. Okay, she murmured, drifting back to sleep. And in that quiet hospital room, with no grand miracle, no sudden resolution, grace continued to unfold, in provision, in people, in presence, and in a heart that was finally learning. God hadn't been absent. He had been working all along. The days began to feel different, not easier, not entirely. Lila was still in the hospital. The machines still hummed. The future was still uncertain. But something had shifted in the atmosphere surrounding Emberlyn. Fear no longer filled every space. It still came, but it didn't stay the same way. Hope had started to live alongside it. Late afternoon sunlight spilled softly across the hospital courtyard, warming the benches and casting long shadows across the pavement. It was the first time Emberlyn had stepped outside in days. Caleb sat a few feet away on the same bench, a respectful distance between them. Not distant, but not assuming closeness either. He had learned her rhythm, and she had begun to trust it. She fell asleep fast today, Emberlyn said, her voice quieter now. Not drained, just thoughtful. That's a good sign, Caleb replied. She nodded. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the distant sounds of traffic and wind brushing through the trees. I used to hate quiet, Emberlyn admitted. Caleb glanced at her. Why? Because it made room for thoughts I didn't want to deal with, she said. Regret, fear, questions. And now, she exhaled slowly. Now it feels like I can finally hear something else. He didn't ask what. He let her say it if she wanted to. She turned slightly, her eyes softer than they had been when he first met her. "I think I'm starting to hear God again." The words hung in the air, gentle but significant. Caleb gave a small nod. "He's a good voice to come back to." She smiled faintly. "I'm still learning how to listen." "That's all any of us are doing," he said. A breeze passed between them, lifting a loose strand of her hair. She tucked it behind her ear, hesitating before speaking again. "You said something the other night," she said, "about thinking God had disappeared from your life." Caleb leaned back slightly, his expression shifting, not guarded, but reflective. "Yeah. What happened?" He was quiet for a moment, not avoiding, remembering. "My wife," he said finally. The word landed gently, but carried weight. Emberlyn stilled. "I didn't know you were married." "I was," he said. Her name was Alara. There was no bitterness in his tone, just grief that had settled into something quieter over time. "She got sick," he continued. "Fast, aggressive, the kind of diagnosis that doesn't give you time to prepare." Emberlyn's chest tightened. "I prayed," he said. "A lot. I believed God would heal her. I held on to every promise I could find." He paused, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "But she didn't get better." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was reverent. "I remember sitting in a hospital room, not so different from yours," he said, asking God why he would let something like that happen. Emberlyn swallowed. "What did you hear?" Caleb let out a slow breath. "Nothing at first," he said honestly. "Just silence." And that silence turned into anger. He looked down at his hands briefly. "I walked away for a while," he admitted. "Not all at once, just little by little." Emberlyn nodded slightly. "I understand that." He glanced at her, then continued. "But one night, months later, I came across this verse. I don't even remember how. He spoke it quietly, but clearly. And he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness.' 2 Corinthians 12:9. Emberlyn listened closely. "I hated that verse at first," Caleb admitted, a faint, almost self-aware smile touching his lips. "It didn't feel like enough." "What changed?" she asked. He met her gaze again. "I realized I had been defining God's goodness by my outcome," he said, "not by his presence." The words settled deep. "And he was there," Caleb continued. "Even when I didn't get the miracle I wanted, even when I was angry, even when I walked away." His voice softened. "I just couldn't see it yet." Emberlyn looked down at her hands, absorbing everything. "I think I've been doing that too," she admitted. "Measuring whether God is good based on whether things go my way." Caleb nodded gently. "It's a human thing to do." She let out a small breath. "It's hard to trust again after you feel like you've lost everything." "I know," he said. And the way he said it, simple, steady, made it clear he wasn't just agreeing. He understood. The space between them felt different now, closer. Not because either of them forced it, but because something honest had been shared. Something real. Emberlyn turned toward him slightly. "Why did you come back?" she asked. "To faith, I mean." Caleb thought for a moment. "Because even when I was done with God," he said, "he wasn't done with me." He added quietly, "The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger and great in mercy." Psalm 145. 8. Emberlyn felt her throat tighten. Compassion, mercy, not things she had associated with her life recently. But maybe they had been there all along. A comfortable silence settled again, but this time it carried something new. Connection, not rushed, not overwhelming, just present. Emberlyn glanced at him, a small, hesitant smile forming. "You're not what I expected," she said. Caleb raised an eyebrow slightly. "Good or bad?" "Good," she said softly. "Just different." He smiled faintly. "I'll take that." She looked out toward the fading sunlight. "I don't trust easily," she said after a moment. "Not anymore." "I'm not asking you to," he replied. She looked back at him. "I know." And that, more than anything, was why she was starting to. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft hues of gold and amber, Emberlyn felt something unfamiliar settle into her chest. Not fear, not uncertainty. Something quieter, safer, hope. Not just for Lila, not just for tomorrow, but for herself, for the possibility that life wasn't finished with her yet. That love, real, patient, steady love, might still have a place in her story. As they stood to head back inside, Caleb spoke once more, his voice calm but sure. "He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things?" Romans 8:32. Emberlyn looked at him, the verse settling into her heart in a way it wouldn't have before. Freely give, not earned, not forced, given. She nodded slowly. "I'm starting to believe that," she said. And as they walked back toward the hospital together, not rushed, not defined, but quietly aligned, the walls around her heart didn't fall all at once, but they lowered, piece by piece, and in their place, trust began to grow, not just in God, but in the possibility of love restored. The procedure didn't fix everything. Emberlyn knew that the moment she saw the doctor's face, not grim, not hopeless, but careful, measured. "We were able to stabilize the immediate concern," Dr. Hensley explained, his voice steady. "But Lila's condition is something she will continue to live with. This isn't a complete cure." The words landed softly, but they stayed. Not a complete cure. Emberlyn nodded slowly, her hand tightening around the strap of her bag. "So, what does that mean for her?" she asked. "It means ongoing treatment," he said. "Monitoring, adjustments, some difficult days. But also," he paused slightly, offering a small, genuine smile. "A real chance at a full life. A full life, not perfect, not easy, but possible." Emberlyn exhaled, something in her chest loosening, not completely, but enough. "Thank you," she said quietly. And this time, she meant it without fear attached. Lila came home 3 days later. The apartment hadn't changed, still small, still worn, still carrying the weight of everything Emberlyn had struggled through. But it didn't feel the same. Light filtered differently through the windows. The air felt softer. Or maybe she was the one who had changed. Lila sat curled up on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her cheeks still pale, but her eyes brighter than they had been in weeks. "Mama," she said, "can we still go to the park when I get better?" Emberlyn smiled, brushing her fingers gently through her daughter's hair. "We'll go slow," she said. "But yes, baby, we'll go." Lila nodded, satisfied. That was enough for her. Simple hope, simple trust. That evening, there was a knock at the door. Emberlyn opened it to find Caleb standing there, holding a small paper bag and what looked like a folded piece of paper. "I wasn't sure if it was a good time," he said. "It is," she replied, stepping aside. "Come in." He entered quietly, taking in the space without judgment. Lila waved weakly from the couch. "Hi, Caleb." "Hey, kiddo," he said with a small smile. "I brought you something." He handed her the bag. Inside was a small stuffed lamb. Lila's face lit up. "I love it," she said. "Figured you might," he replied. Emberlyn watched the interaction, something warm settling in her chest. Not overwhelming, not rushing ahead, just steady. Later, after Lila had fallen asleep, Emberlyn and Caleb sat at the small kitchen table. The room was quiet, lit by a single overhead bulb. "I kept thinking everything had to be fixed for God to be good," Emberlyn said softly. "Like healing meant everything going back to the way it was." Caleb nodded slightly. "And now?" She looked down at her hands, then back up. "Now I think maybe healing doesn't always look like that." He didn't interrupt. She continued. "She's not completely healed," Emberlyn said. "Our situation isn't perfect. I still don't know how everything is going to work long term." A small pause. "But I'm not the same," she added. That was the truth. Something deeper had shifted. Fear no longer ruled her. Control no longer defined her. And faith. Faith was no longer something distant. It was alive again. She reached for the folded paper Caleb had brought earlier. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I thought you might want to keep," he said. She unfolded it slowly. A handwritten verse, carefully written, intentional. "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose." Romans 8:28. Emberlyn smiled faintly. "You already shared this one," she said. "I know," Caleb replied. "But sometimes we need to see things more than once before they really sink in." She traced the words lightly with her finger. "All things," she said again. Caleb leaned back slightly. "Not all things are good," he said. "But God can still bring good through them." She nodded. "I think I'm starting to understand that." The weeks that followed weren't easy. There were doctor visits, long nights, moments of fear that still crept in unexpectedly. But there were also things Emberlyn hadn't experienced in a long time. Peace, quiet, steady, unforced, support from people she hadn't known before, and joy, small but real. Lila's laughter returned in pieces, short at first, then fuller, stronger. One Sunday morning, Emberlyn stood just outside a small church. Not large, not impressive, but welcoming. She hesitated at the door. Caleb stood beside her, hands relaxed at his sides. "No pressure," he said gently. "We can leave if you want." She shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "I want to go in." And she did. Not because everything in her life was fixed, but because something inside her had been restored. The music was soft, voices raised, not perfectly, but sincerely. Lila sat beside her, leaning gently against her arm, the small stuffed lamb in her lap. Emberlyn closed her eyes for a moment, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel distant from God. She felt near, held, known. The words of Scripture surfaced again, clearer now. "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." John 16:33. Tribulation. She understood that word now. But peace. She understood that too. After the service, they stepped outside into the sunlight. Lila tugged gently at Emberlyn's hand. "Mama," she said, "I feel happy." Emberlyn smiled down at her. "Me too, baby." And she meant it, not because everything was perfect, but because everything had purpose. Caleb stood beside her, quiet as always, not rushing, not demanding, just present. Emberlyn turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" She thought for a moment. "For not pushing," she said. "For staying. For pointing me back to God instead of trying to replace him." Caleb gave a small, genuine smile. "That was never my place." She nodded. "I know." A pause, then softly. "I'm glad you're here." His expression warmed slightly. "I'm glad I stayed." As they walked forward, together but not hurried, Emberlyn felt something settle fully into place. Her life wasn't what she had planned. It wasn't easy. It wasn't without struggle. But it was rooted now in something unshakable: faith, love, purpose, and a God who had never left. Even in the silence, her eyes lifted slightly, her heart steady, and the final truth settled deep within her. Now, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. Romans 15:13. This was the miracle, not a life without scars, but a life restored through them. Not the ending she expected, but the one that changed everything.